Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Mitlis. I'm an instructor in sound recording and music technology here at Montgomery County Community College. We are kicking off our Montco at Home Global Perspectives in Electronic Music event with Rachel Azik. And Rachel is a vocal-centric electropop producer and performance artist from Cambridge, Massachusetts. When she is not on stage or in the studio, she is working for iZotope, a renowned music technology plugin company, as a sound designer. So welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So tell us about, like, how'd you get to where you are, as a sound designer with iZotope, if we wanted to start with that.
Sure. Honestly, just kind of happened into it a little bit. I started working at iZotope in customer care right after college. My job in college, student employment, was actually pretty much exactly iZotope customer care, but then with like DAW support and a bunch of other plugin support and Mac repairs. So ended up coming to iZotope through that job. And then I performed at one of our company events, and everyone in the company lost their shit, and they're like, oh, you need to be in sound design. What are you doing in customer care? And then eventually ended up applying for sound design and got the job. So
that's amazing. And that's like a huge accomplishment. Like, yeah. Seriously, I mean, I don't know, blown away. So I guess we'll start by, getting into, we'll go over, do you want to discuss your creative process first, or do you want to get into the, your actual performance? Is there anything you want to say before that, and we can kind of dive into that and deconstruct it a little bit?
Let's dive in and then deconstruct.
Okay, so just so everyone knows, Rachel's gonna be using something called Ableton, which is a DAW, a digital audio workstation. There's many out there, so we're gonna get into why she uses Ableton afterwards. But yeah, so let's get going with that.
Awesome. Share my screen here. Awesome. So today I am planning to walk you through kind of my thinking and my process on producing vocals for an electronic track. This song that I'm going to go over is a song called Oversight. It was co-produced and written by me and one of the other sound designers on my team. He goes by Smeaganaut. And I'm just going to play the whole track from start to finish so you can kind of get context of where we're aiming to get with our raw vocals. So let me make sure this is soloed. If you can't hear it, wave your hands, someone.
Wow. Amazing.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm fighting with the loop back on volume right now.
Oh no, it's fine. I've had to do that many times. It's all good. We're getting a lot of, let's see what we got here. So yeah, where do you want to start with deconstructing with the vocals, or even your creative process with this?
Cool. So I'll talk a little bit about, I guess, how the song came to be. So I really, really love collaborating with producers. I'm actually kind of new to electronic production instrumentally. And so I just love collaborating with other producers, injecting some of myself into their productions, and also just learning whatever they have to show. So I essentially got this really bare bones track from the person I was collaborating with, just like a minute long. I kind of recorded a few verses over the loop, and then we ended up sitting down and expanding on the track together, getting the arrangement set up to be better for vocals, essentially. And then after that, went in and recorded these vocals that you see here. There's actually not that many vocal tracks compared to what I usually do. And then we sat down, mixed the vocals together, and added the vocal chop stuff as kind of the last part.
That's awesome. I think someone asked a question about that from Patrick. He said, how did you process the backing vocals to give them that chopped up sound effect?
So I'm actually going to cover that in a bit, but
okay.
Using essentially simple answer, using Simpler, and the lead vocal dropped into Simpler. I'll show this off in a little bit because I need the lead vocal fully processed to do that. But yeah, it's kind of a tweaky thing. So
yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, we can go over that. My question, I guess, and why do you use Ableton as your DAW of choice? Like, did you start out with Ableton? Is there a reason you feel most creative in this environment, in a collaborative sense, and also as an artist?
So my first DAW was Logic, actually. And through my major at college, I had to be fluent in like Logic Pro Tools, Reason, Digital Performer, and I actually didn't start using Ableton until after I graduated. It started out of kind of the necessity of getting my live shows sounding the way I wanted to, and then just kind of grew to love the environment of Ableton. I honestly almost always use Pro Tools when I'm recording or editing vocals, but there's like a lot of really cool processing that can happen with just like Ableton stock plugins. They're so light on processing power and so powerful, and no other DAW has plugins like Ableton has. So whenever I'm doing any creative work, like vocal sketches, I'll do it in Ableton and then move to Pro Tools kind of for the full recording and mix session.
I'm the same way. And you mentioned the thing about like kind of sketching, and that's kind of like how I view Ableton. It's like a sketch pad, especially in the other view that you can look at in Ableton. Do you have that open, or do you just working? Yeah. So so, you know, just having that ability just to go through and sketch out your ideas is really a powerful tool with Ableton.
Yeah, I don't use this mode of Ableton very much. This is kind of the one thing that my brain hasn't grasped yet because it's so different than other DAWs, but I really do like working in arrangement mode. Oh, and one thing that is amazing in Ableton is it warps audio files seamlessly. So if you're like playing around with a song and you're like, wait, this needs to be faster, you can just kind of change the tempo of all your audio files.
And Pro Tools,
instantly.
not so much. Yeah, that's great.
Awesome.
Sorry, Kendall, did you say something? Okay.
I'm just annotating away here. Don't mind me.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Notes.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. So any thoughts? So you mentioned about being like collaborating, and that's something new you do. And how would you say like your creative process has evolved from starting something and, I'm guessing you even used GarageBand too at some point, right? Or, going from Logic to Ableton. So like, besides the DAW aspect, how did do you feel your creative process evolved with all these tools?
It's evolved, honestly, so much. Like when I first got into music, I was a piano player, singer, playing Regina Spektor covers. And then I started recording my own music with an engineer that I actually worked with at a live venue in high school. And there was kind of a point where I was working on the songs and I wanted to do like a vocal chop effect of some sort. And so I opened GarageBand and like kind of figured out how to do that. And through making that whole EP, kind of just like took it upon myself to do things because I couldn't say what I wanted to the engineer, or he didn't understand what I wanted. So that's kind of how I got my start. Pro Tools was like my first actual DAW though, because my engineer had used Pro Tools. So by watching him mix and do stuff in Pro Tools, I just kind of already knew how to do it when it was in front of me. Then I discovered the artist Kimbra and everything changed. I'll actually pull this out. If you can see me, I got this vocal processor looper thing. It's essentially like a live sampler, does a lot of really cool stuff. And it changed my thinking on music production totally, because I can do everything with my voice with this thing. And then I needed my productions to kind of match the power of my live performances. And it's definitely evolved to make space for my crazy vocal ideas. And the crazier they get, the more my production kind of has to change to fit in with those vocal ideas. So.
But that's a great part of being in a digital space or realm, right? Like working in that. Like if we were, in strictly analog, we couldn't necessarily do everything we're doing with all the, processing power we need, which makes it really cool. Like you were saying, like translation and having ownership, like being like, can you elaborate on that? Kind of like having ownership over, I guess, your own work or your voice?
Yeah. I think that was kind of the biggest reason why I started to get into production. I think that my engineer just let me down all the time. I think that's probably something a lot of beginning vocalists have trouble with, and probably women in the industry. You're not taken seriously with your requests, you're not listened to. And as a vocalist, you know what sounds good. Like, you know it better than almost anyone else. And I was just kind of sick of not hearing myself the way I wanted to. And once I started kind of taking that process upon myself, I got the results I wanted. So.
No, that's great. I think there's a lot to be said for that, especially as someone like women in the industry. Oftentimes, I even hear from students, from their own experiences, not being taken seriously, or all these skills they have, and it's like, well, you're not doing it the way I do it, that type of thing. So it's important and it's powerful to have those skills, and I'm so happy that you were able to go on that journey and be able to share it with us.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Jen, let me jump in because
yeah,
we have many educators in the audience.
absolutely, yeah, sure.
And so one of the questions kind of leans in that direction, Rachel. So Mark says, when you think back on some of your most favorite music teachers, what did they have in common? What was it about their approach to teaching that helped you allow your love of music to grow?
So honestly, my favorite professors were the really nutty, crazy professors that like kind of didn't super have a curriculum and would just throw stuff at us. Like,
Oh, that's just
I
what we
think,
wanted to hear as
yeah,
professors. Yeah. So more crazy, more nuts, more good. Okay.
yeah.
Keep.
I think I'm thinking back to one of my favorite teachers in my favorite classes where every week we'd have to produce 1 minute of any kind of song, any kind of genre. And he'd just like write things and put them in a hat. And then like you had to make like an electric bass clarinet song that made you feel weird and like that kind of stuff. So it was just like really weird, really got my creative juices flowing. And I think it really helped me kind of develop my production style by having to go out of the box all the time.
Yeah, I think in those kind of experimental, open-ended instructions, there's less judgment too, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, that's not the right way to do electronic bass clarinet. Who
He
knows?
was a pretty tough grader,
Oh,
to be
so there
fair.
was a
So,
right way to do.
yeah.
But
Well,
at least it opened that door, or it gave you that opportunity to be creative in a more not rigid environment where, say,
Yeah.
music theory this or music theory that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and now
Um,
Patrick is asking about how you kind of decide when to collaborate and when to expand. So he says, for example, if you weren't able to play a certain instrument, do you bring in other people to play a part, or is there a part of a track that you decide you can't complete and then you look to try and find other people to collaborate with, or when do you decide to bring in someone more than just your own voice on a piece?
So it depends. When it's my own work, honestly, drum and bass grooves are something I know so many people can do better than I can, and they drive so much of what I do as a vocalist. So oftentimes I'll get kind of the chord progression idea of the song, a vocal sketch. A lot of times I'll have vocals kind of acting as instrumental parts, so I'll record those in like final version. Um, and then usually get someone to come in and add drum and bass, like kind of in the beginning-ish stages, and then work off of that. So, but when it's with other people, it's often they're like, hey, I have this idea. I'd love you to sing over it. And then in every collaboration I've done in that way, they've always just been like very open to me being a part of the track and the arrangement and adding non-vocals to it, which has been really cool.
Nice. I know we have a question kind of outstanding about how you used the simpler and did the chopping and everything. So I want to make sure we don't forget to get back to Patrick's
yeah.
point
Do you
on that.
want to do you want to get into that, Rachel? Kind of deconstruct what's going on Ableton a little bit.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, let's get started.
Awesome.
Awesome. So these are the vocal tracks for this song. This is a lot more pared down than normal for me, but restraint is a new skill that I'm learning, and this is a good example of that. So in here we have a lead vocal, two lead vocal doubles, two harmony tracks, and then I have kind of the lead vocals for the latter part of the song on a separate track because they're totally different vibe. So once my vocals are recorded, I like the way they sound. The very first thing I do is tune. And this is something that people feel very strongly about opposite of me, but there's no way in hell I'm letting my vocals go out into the world without tuning them, no matter how good anyone else thinks they sound. So I have this little sample right here that I'm just gonna solo and tune up. So when I'm tuning, the first thing I do is put Melodyne on this. This is my absolute favorite plugin. Oh, please let me put Melodyne on here.
There's some people that use different DAWs. So what's the process of putting a plugin, you know, in Ableton, if you want to explain, just as your process you're doing here? You're just dragging it on there, right?
Yes, and I don't know if it will work. Oh yeah, there we go. I was just clicking the wrong thing. Yeah, you can just drag and drop it. So there's no like drop down menu in Ableton. You just kind of grab from the menu and then drag and drop.
And Melodyne is something we have in SRT, so our students are familiar with Melodyne. So
Melodyne's annoying sometimes. It opens the internet browser like all the time. Sweet. So in order to use Melodyne, the reason why I'm only doing a small portion is because you have to play the audio live for it to capture. So you just click this transfer button. I'm just going to close out of here and play my loop. Give me another night. Give me another night, darling. It was an oversight. Thought I would be alright all alone. It was incredible, so unforgettable. Give me another night to burn the memories in my brain. Awesome. So we should be able to go back into Melodyne and scroll the timeline, and there is our audio. And I love Melodyne so much, it's kind of like working with a MIDI editor. So the first thing I do when I get into Melodyne is Command A to select all of the pitch notes. It's pretty good at knowing what key your audio is in without you having to set anything. And then just kind of select this little, I don't even know the names of these things, this little arrowy guy here, and double click one of the nodes, and that's going to lock all of your pitches into place. Then typically what I do is double click in this window and you can start to listen through just this track. Even if you don't have it soloed, it will only play what's in the Melodyne window. And then I'll stop and fix notes that I don't like from here. Give me another night. Give me another night, darling. It was an oversight. Make sure not everything's selected. Another night, darling. It was an oversight. Thought I would be alright all alone. It was incredible, so unforgettable.
I just have one comment to make about Autotune, and I agree with you. It's a tool. It's not wrong to use. I think a lot of times, oftentimes people, maybe not in the industry or even outside the industry, go, "Oh my gosh, you're using Autotune. They can't sing or perform," and that's not true. That's not true at all. So anyone looking at this saying it's cheating or it's not. It's a tool to get the results you want. So I just want to give my piece on that.
Yeah. And you will not hear a pop song that doesn't have tuning on it. It's just like, it's a standard, there's a sound, and you don't have to use it, but if you do use it, then good for you.
Yeah. Do you use Antares at all or just Melodyne?
Yes, I do. Usually when I'm producing stuff that's more electronic or pop centric, I will do Melodyne and then throw Autotune on afterwards. I think it just gives like another layer of sparkle to the vocal.
Yeah. And Isotope has Melodyne built into something now, right?
Yeah, it comes with nectar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
And we do
this
have nectar at the college, everyone.
Yeah. Awesome.
Give me another night to burn the memories in.
So I'm just going to use this tool to kind of split up these notes that didn't.
What would you say for you was your learning curve with Melodyne? Because we actually have an entire class on Melodyne. So for you, was it like intuitive? Was it something that you struggled with, or, you know, just curious?
This was one of those things that I actually watched my engineer do all the time that I just knew how to do as soon as I got it for myself. So
Nice.
Watch someone do it, at least for me, is a great way to learn.
Sure.
The memories in.
So yeah, splitting the notes is.
The memories in my breath. Breath. Breath.
Good enough. Awesome. So close out a Melodyne, and then what I'm going to do is drop Autotune on this track.
I got to, Eric, I kind of guess what's the next step here.
Yeah. So usually what I'll do after I drop Autotune on is just kind of leave it in the default state in open Melodyne, and then listen to this track again and make any tweaks in Melodyne if I hear anything weird, because Autotune is a lot, it's more reactive and can be kind of artifacty and unnatural sounding if you don't do kind of more nitpicky things in Melodyne. So just listen.
Give me another night.
See?
Mm-hmm.
Give me another night.
Ooh.
Give me another night. Give me another night, darling.
Ooh,
It was
this is bad.
I would be alright all alone. Incredible. So unforgettable. Give me another
Oh, that's because it's in C major. There we go.
in my breath.
Wrong key. Let's go back.
Give me another night. Give me another night, darling. It was an oversight. I would be alright all alone.
And the plugin window is great in Ableton too. Like you can.
So unforgettable. Give me another night to burn the memories in my brain.
Ooh, that's my dog. Okay, that's good enough for me. So once I have all my vocals tuned up, which the rest of them are, because I don't want to spend the whole hour tuning vocals in front of you, kind of what I like to do next is balance and panning. So I kind of like to treat vocal production, the first stages, as treating the lead vocal as kind of the like unicorn horn. It's like driving the way for all the other vocal tracks. And then think about filling kind of a space. Like I think of like a 360 space and where the rest of my vocal tracks are going to fall within them. And I already did this, but I kind of like to group my vocals by their purpose before I get into mixing, and kind of work in broad strokes with those groups and then break it down. But panning and balancing, I'll start I guess, track by track. So I have my lead vocal.
As we're getting into that, I just have one, someone had a question just to, before we move off from completely with Autotune. Pat asked, what does splitting the notes / nodes do? Does it just humanize the notes, words, pitches better? That's what his question was.
Yeah, so Melodyne does a pretty good job of detecting when notes change. And so that's where you see the different kind of like MIDI looking regions. But sometimes if you're singing a lot of notes that are pretty close to each other, Melodyne doesn't catch that they're different notes. And here, let's open it up. It doesn't catch that they're different notes like here, and will kind of draw them as a pitch line rather than a separate note. So just splitting the note allows you to move the part of the note that needs to split. And then it will also push all the other notes down to their original pitch position. So when you split a note, just make sure you double click it to get it back blocked into the correct pitch.
Thank you.
Awesome. So with panning and balancing my vocals, I'm going to start with my lead doubles. So I always like to double my lead vocal. In this instance, I did it twice just because this is a pretty simple vocal track. So doubling is essentially just doing the same thing you did over again. You can recreate a double with one vocal take by just kind of pushing it a little bit to the right or left. You don't want to have two of the same exact vocal take right on top of each other, or you'll get like weird phasing issues. But if you bump it to the right or the left a little bit, it can sound like a double and not cause those issues. But I did the vocal tracks separately. So when I'm working with doubles, I usually just label them right off the bat. This track is left, this track is right. So for these doubles, I just kind of want them to hug the vocal a little bit and give a little space. So I'm gonna do like a 20 left, 20 right situation here for the panning. And in relation to the lead vocal, let's see what these sound like.
Give me another night. Give me another night, darling. It was an oversight.
Turn them down a little bit.
Thought I would be alright all alone. It was incredible. So unforgettable. Give me another night to burn the memories in my brain.
Awesome.
You probably stack like usually 20 of those, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or more.
And then I have just 2 harmony tracks here. I'm going to pan these out hard left and hard right. So if you're looking at, I guess it's different in Ableton. Most other DAWs use gauges for panning, but Ableton uses this lovely little bar. I actually kind of hate it. 50 left, 50 right. And I'll solo these. Listen again to get the level set.
Give me another night. Give me another night, darling. It was an oversight. Thought I would be alright all alone. It was incredible. So unforgettable. Give me another night to burn the memories in my brain.
That's a good starting point for me. So usually panning, I'll usually leave where it is when I've said it in the beginning. Balance kind of the levels where they sit in relation to each other is something that will change as you add processing. So it's always something you kind of want to revisit as you're adding more to the song.
So we have a question from Josh who's like marveling like I am at the fact that you kind of know when to stop making adjustments. Like for beginners, right? Sometimes it's just a rabbit hole. and you're down there tweaking a little bit here and a little bit there, and it goes on forever. And do you have any advice for when to kind of call it quits and move on to the next step?
My advice is schedule a handoff to a mix engineer or a mastering engineer sooner than you'd like to, so that you have to stop, because that's what I have to do. I'll keep going until my fingers bleed.
So this whole work deadlines matter, like just just a drop dead date and that's it. It's done. There's no more paint going on the painting.
Yep.
You can keep going forever.
Yeah.
You need that external factor to like stop. I totally get that.
Yeah. Sweet. So now I'm going to start kind of doing my broad strokes mixing here. So I'm going to unsolo everything. This is one of my absolute favorite vocal plugins, Nectar 3. Still just going to loop this session. So this is kind of like a full vocal chain plugin. Has a bunch of different modules, both mixing and creative. There's a harmony module, which is super cool. I don't really use it because I like to record my own harmonies, but it's helpful for people that have just like one vocal track and need to make what they can with it. Automatic level metering, which kind of acts, I don't know if any of you have seen like Vocal Writer, it just kind of levels out your vocal track limiter. And then my personal favorite thing, always start mixing vocals with this, is the vocal assistant. So
can I ask you a quick question about that? Because there's a lot of people that have, you know, opinions about AI in music tech, right? So what would you say for you, how does it facilitate your creative process? Like, why is it an okay and a good thing?
So Vocal Assistant does a better job than I could do in 5 seconds of time. It's honestly a huge time saver. It gives me a really quick idea of what my vocal take sounds like in the context of the mix. And I can kind of tell a lot better when my vocal is right or if it's off, when I've got it like kind of sounding close to finished and polished. So this is kind of like a double check tool, and also like a fast forward through a bunch of tedious steps I would have to do anyways.
That's a great way to put it. Double check tool. I love that. Fast forward. Yeah. And I think if people look at it that way, it wouldn't seem so oppositional. And
yeah.
And I just hope that's great with that, with like all the products. I'm just putting it out there. I love all their AI tools.
Yeah. The point of this is not to like replace anything. It's always just kind of like a starting point, and then you can get deeper from there. It's like this assistant is mostly sound design set, kind of preset based, except for a few things that are learned while the assistant is running. But it's, I don't know, it's great. I love it.
I use it all the time. I mean, like, it's just, you're right. It's like a starting point.
Yeah.
For a part, and it might notice things you might not notice, which is great too. It's like another person, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'll click next on this, and then you kind of get to select your vibe, vintage, modern, dialogue. I'm going to go with modern on the lead vocal here, and intensity, light, moderate, or aggressive. This will usually just apply to how low, or the compressor, essentially, how heavy that's hitting. So I'm going to click next and play, and then
Justin,
you'll be able.
Oh, go ahead. Justin had a question. So just so we understand feedback, because feedback means a lot of things, right? So yeah. Justin asked, as far as AI assistant or the assistants, so is it kind of like receiving feedback on your performance then?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So gonna click next, play the audio, and it will tell you everything it's doing while it's doing it, and you'll kind of hear things change.
To burn the memories in my brain. Give me another night. Give me another night, darling. It was an oversight.
So now we have a full chain that is made specifically for my vocal. So we have a cut EQ, which is just kind of cutting out problem frequencies. This one is actually learned. So peaks of high energy frequencies that are said to be like a problem frequency, something muddy or like aggressively ringy, we'll just kind of pull these out. A de-esser, which didn't turn on, and I'm turning it on because I want it. A character EQ, which is kind of what gives you that like modern vibe. This one's preset based. Your compressor, this seems like it's a little crazy, but we'll revisit it. And then the assistant always adds a reverb. I don't ever use this reverb. I am a big fan of using buses or sends for reverb and other time-based effects. If you use reverb track by track when you're working with 30 vocals, it gets really messy really fast. So.
And Rachel, can we jump in for the computer part of the room? So these AI decisions are being based off of machine learning, off of huge batches of similar kinds of vocal sounds that humans have decided this sounds really good, this is really too much sibilance, this is blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, some of these. I don't think particularly anything in here is from machine learning specifically. For example, the de-esser, there's some like behind the scenes set parameters where I guess, no, maybe it is with machine learning. When it detects a certain amount of essing, it kind of will set the threshold and then kind of set the frequency with which it's de-essing from. Same goes with the cut EQ. So this one is kind of set based on like detecting frequencies, and these certain ranges, each node kind of has like a certain range where it's going to look for those frequencies, and if it finds them, it's going to cut them. So it's part sound design set and then also part machine learned.
And we had a question from Mike about, is there one simple point, like you've been turning on and off different modules where it customized, but is there a single A/B compare?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, there's the bypass button right here.
There we go.
So.
Give me another night. Give me another night, darling. It was
Without it.
I would be alright all alone. It was incredible.
And I'll just solo this track too, so you can hear it a little bit better. The other vocals are drowning it a bit.
Give me another night. Give me another night, darling. It was an oversight. I would be alright all alone. It was incredible.
I don't think it was your plan, but I think you just sold a lot of nectar.
Oh,
You definitely did.
so I can hear the compressors cranking a little bit too much, so I'm just gonna raise the threshold a tiny bit.
Give me another night. Give me another night, darling. It was an oversight. I would be alright all alone. It was incredible. So unforgettable. Give me another.
Better. Awesome. So I'm just going to kind of do the same process on the bus of my lead doubles. We'll run Vocal Assistant again, real quick, unsolo this track. So when I'm working with background vocals, I usually like to go with more of a vintage vibe. It's going to help me separate my background vocals from my lead vocals, give it a little bit of room. The vintage vibe here is kind of darker, so it will be more subdued and just kind of have its own character. So.
Give me another night. Give me another night, darling. It was an oversight. Thought I would be alright all alone. It was incredible, so unforgettable. Give me another night to burn the memories in my brain. Give me another night. Give me another night, darling. It was an oversight.
Again, getting rid of the reverb there. And I'm going to turn the doubles down a little bit more because they're overtaking. And then one more time on the harmonies.
And Rachel, what kind of computing power are you sitting in front of? Because it's really lightweight. I mean, we're never seeing the CPU usage going very high at all.
Yeah, I have 16 gigabytes of RAM, 2012 computer, so
Wow.
working.
Wow, that's impressive.
I'm just going to change my loop section up here to get the harmonies in there. Going to do the same vintage with these harmonies.
So unforgettable. Give me another night to burn the memories in my brain. It was incredible, so unforgettable. Give me another night to burn the memories in my brain. It was incredible, so unforgettable. Give me another night.
So I'm going to turn the harmonies down a tad more as well, since they're super wide and super dark. I usually, when I'm working with lower harmonies, usually turning them down like even more so that than you normally would is really good, because all you need when you're working with like a high lead vocal in the lower harmonies is just kind of the brush in your ears on the outside, rather than like a full like earful, or it'll kind of overtake the lead vocal you're working with. So let's just listen to this first verse in full.
Give me another night. Give me another night, darling. It was an oversight. Thought I would be alright all alone. It was incredible, so unforgettable. Give me another night to burn the memories in my brain.
Cool. So it's starting to sound like something, digging the level of that. So to make sure we have time, because we're running low, I'm going to jump into the sampler thing. So the vocal chops, what I'm going to do is just duplicate this lead vocal track. Please don't crash. And then going to freeze it with the processing and the tuning in it, the duplicated track. And then I'm going to flatten, which will bounce all my processing into the audio. So I have this MIDI track set up right here, and I have an Ableton push controller next to me currently. And on this MIDI track, I have the Ableton device sampler, which is really awesome stock plugin. So gonna drag the frozen flattened lead vocal track into here, and we can kind of see this whole file. So what you want to do once you get in Simpler is kind of, at the very least, drag the playhead here to the very start of the audio file. And I'm gonna add a tiny bit of fade just so we don't get clippy. And so I'm going to then warp the audio file. This is the pitch shifting thing I was talking about. So warp it, and then I always select Complex Pro warping. It's the best quality. And let's see how that sounds. So what I would then do is let's go back to the beginning of the song, and I'm just going to record that in. And I have to change the tempo. That's going to mess up all my audio. Cool. Let's see how this works. Cool, so that doesn't sound very good. So I'm going to quantize this really quickly to 16th note and go back into Simpler and figure out why it sounds so bad. So you can just kind of solo this and then loop it. Being weird. Cool. So I'm just going to go in and going to edit these nodes kind of like MIDI and just drag them. Let's see how this. So confused about why it's not warping. Usually if you drag this formant thing, it will kind of change the pitch of it, but this is the basic idea. So just dragging the vocal file in, and then if for some reason your formant control isn't working, I like Little Alter Boy. It's a Sound Toys plugin. It's amazing.
Really good.
So if we have this track here, just and then we can like so that's kind of the basic idea how we got there. This isn't working how it should be, so
But that's part of the process too, having to, you know, use different tools. So that's fine. But shout out to Sound Toys. They make great stuff.
so awesome.
Yeah.
So I guess just to kind of wrap this up, I guess there's not too much more time, but at this point I would probably start adding my bust effects. So I have kind of an Ableton, it's under the level and the panning. You can send to reverb and delay, which are already in here. I don't love their stock reverb or delay, so I'd probably pull in Valhalla, Room, or Neoverb once that's released. And and start adding effects to my vocals. And then once I've got kind of like the sketch of how it's all going to sound, start going in and being really surgical with my EQs and my compressors and kind of getting the balance right. So
thank you. This is a really good, I think this was really insightful for me, and I'm sure everyone else. Thanks. We have some questions.
okay.
I want to start, well, we can start with Pat's, and then I want to, Lauren's is a little, yeah, okay. Well, so Pat said, so you took the vocal recording and turned it into a sample and then played back certain words repeatedly as you recorded to get that chopped effect. It looks as though you're looping the gimme word in simpler. How did you do that?
So that is pretty simple, actually. So I just, essentially simpler will go back to the starting point every time you start the MIDI note again. There's different modes like slice, which will slice up your sample. So you can just play like, play different parts of the audio file, which is how that other sample on top of the gimme, gimme, gimme part was made. But yeah, essentially just like triggering the note will bring you back to the very beginning every time.
Thanks.
And that's a really fun thing to have a push for. I mean,
yeah,
just be able to one button sample, boom, 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 64 pads if you just play around.
And then this is, I guess, a good way to kind of end. And it's a topic everyone knows I'm very passionate about. Lauren asked, what are some advantages, not sure, and disadvantages of being a woman in the music industry? What are your thoughts on that?
So disadvantages are obviously, I think, especially in my field of sound design, making plugins that many men and many not very nice men use. There's kind of always an inclination for them to not believe my credentials a lot of the time, and not be taken seriously. I go to trade shows and I am connecting with people at other tech companies, and they find out I'm a sound designer, and then all they say is like weird things about like, oh, so cool that you guys have the female perspective on your plugins. And it's like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Lady ears.
Advantages, especially where I work, is I think that just naturally the way that I got into music production and sound design, I think a lot differently than the men around me about audio. And though we use the same tools and have the same skills, I am way better at communicating my ideas and thoughts with other people that aren't sound designers or audio people. And that has made me excel in ways that my male colleagues don't. And so, yeah.
No, I'm with you on all of that. Yeah, Lauren said thank you. Any advice to someone that wants to be like an ally, that wants to support women in the music industry? Any thoughts on that?
If you want to support women in the music industry, check out Women's Audio Mission. They're awesome. Support women-led organizations. Stand up for women in the comment threads of YouTube videos and all that good stuff. And trust women when they disagree with you on things regarding audio.
Yeah, no, powerful. I agree. And Women's Audio Mission has been so helpful for me myself, and they've helped so many people. And I'm just going to plug Beats by Girls as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you were wearing the shirt the other day, so.
Yes, can't forget about Beats by Girls. Support Beats by Girls too.
Yeah. Any last questions or comments from our people here?
No, we want to make sure to thank Albright. Mike brought his whole production class over, so we've got a lot of Albright people in the house. We've got a bunch of folks from Montco, people from the community, and we're just really grateful to Rachel for taking the time and all the preparation to bring this to us. Because I think looking in the discussion boards, I mean, everybody is learned something new. Everybody has just got at least one moment in the talk where they were blown away and had never seen things that way before. So you've brought a lot of great insight to a really diverse crowd, and we're really grateful to you.
Yes, and thank you to Sean Hutchinson and to the college for allowing us to have this space to do such as well.
Yeah, multiple thank yous from everyone in the crowd. Very informative, very fun. Great reviews all around. Rachel, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
It's such an honor to have
Thank you
someone
so
who's
much.
accomplished so much at such a young age come here to share with us. We really had a great time.
Thank you. You too.
Awesome.